Hi, everyone, and welcome back. You've sent over some really interesting sources, and the goal today is pretty clear. Get to the heart of the key ideas quickly and thoroughly.
That's right. So for this deep dive, we're tackling the concept of deep work, mostly drawing from Cal Newport's thinking on it.
Yep, we'll dig into what it actually means, why it feels like, it's getting tougher and tougher to actually do it.
And crucially, how you might start cultivating it yourself. There's a lot here. Research examples.
Right, so our mission, really, is to pull out the absolute must-know stuff about deep work so you feel well-informed, but not totally swamped, ready to jump in.
Let's do it. So this core idea, deep work. It's basically intensely focused activity. You're free from distractions, really pushing your cognitive limits.
Okay, so like proper concentration, the kind that lets you produce really high-quality stuff.
Exactly. And Newport contrasts this with what he calls shallow work, the less demanding sort of logistical tasks,
Yeah.
email scheduling, that kind of thing.
The stuff that fills the day but doesn't feel substantial.
Precisely. Now, it's worth saying, while Newport coined the term deep work, the concept isn't new at all. Think historical figures.
Like Carl Jung. The book mentions him building that stone tower, literally in the woods.
Yeah, which sounds pretty wild, right? But it wasn't just a quick project. It was a huge investment.
To get away from his regular practice and just think.
Exactly. Those periods of isolation were apparently vital for his big ideas, the stuff that really shaped psychology.
So the takeaway there is the importance of deliberately creating a space for focus, like actually carving out time and maybe even a physical place.
Spot on. Jung knew that serious intellectual breakthroughs need immersion, not just, 5 minutes of focus between emails. It's about dedicated space, mentally and physically.
That makes sense. And there's a more modern example too, right? Jason Ben, the finance guy turned coder.
Oh, yeah, his story's fascinating. He wanted to learn coding, and his method was, well, pretty extreme.
Locking himself in a room without a computer, just books and notes.
Reading, taking notes, apparently even talking through coding concepts out loud. He said it was tough at first, but he built up this incredible ability to concentrate for hours.
Wow. And the payoff.
Pretty remarkable. After just a couple of months of this super intense focus, he didn't just pass a tough coding boot camp.
He aced it, right, and got a job quickly.
Yeah, landed a position at a tech startup with a significant salary bump. It really drives home how concentrated effort, especially on learning a valuable skill, can pay off massively. Have you ever tried anything like that, blocking out time so intensely?
It's definitely food for thought, which brings us to why this matters now. Yeah. The argument is, in this information economy, deep work is becoming like a superpower, a key currency for knowledge workers.
Absolutely. Maybe in the industrial age, it was vital for a smaller group, but now, well, so many jobs involve thinking, problem solving.
So this ability to focus deeply is crucial for way more people.
Right. The complexity of information, the global competition. If you can really process stuff and come up with novel solutions, you're incredibly valuable. Deep work enables that. It's becoming fundamental.
And Newport himself is kind of a case study, isn't he? The book mentions his output, multiple books, PhD, academic papers, tenure-track job.
All while apparently finishing work by 5:30 p.m., most days over a decade.
Which sounds almost unbelievable in academia. How did he manage that?
He puts it down to ruthlessly minimizing the shallow stuff and structuring his days around dedicated deep work blocks, often just say 3 or 4 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So it's not about more hours. It's about making the hours you do work count, really focusing that effort.
Exactly. It totally challenges that more hours equals more output idea. It's about the impact of focused periods, not just clocking in time, strategic focus.
Okay, but here's the rub, right? It's more important, yet it feels like it's getting harder to achieve.
That's the paradox the book explores, and there are some big trends working against it.
Like the open office. You see them everywhere, Facebook, Square, these huge open spaces.
Yeah, the idea is often pitched as promoting collaboration, sparking serendipity. Jack Dorsey apparently believed those chance encounters were key.
But the downside for deep work seems obvious.
Totally. Constant interruptions, noise, visual distraction. It can make sustained focus incredibly difficult. You might get some serendipity, maybe, but deep thought often goes out the window.
Right. And then there's the whole social media pressure.
Especially if you're in any kind of public role. Even places like the New York Times encourage staff to be on Twitter.
I remember the flap when Jonathan Franzen criticized Twitter.
Yeah.
He got quite a bit of backlash.
He did, seen as out of touch. But then you have writers like George Packer at The New Yorker who deliberately avoids it. He felt it would be too addictive, pull him away from his actual writing.
And he won a big award for a book written while offline, didn't he?
Yep, National Book Award. So it highlights this real tension, the pull of online presence versus the need for sustained, focused work. Does the constant engagement actually outweigh the cost to deep creation?
It's a tough balance.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads nicely into this principle of least resistance.
Ah, yes. The idea that, especially when it's unclear what activities really move the needle,
Like when the impact isn't easily measured.
we tend to default to whatever feels easiest right now, and that's often the shallow stuff.
Because it feels productive. Ticking off emails, responding to messages, gives you that little hit of accomplishment.
Exactly, that immediate gratification of being responsive.
Mm-hmm.
And think about instant messaging at work. It feeds that desire for a quick back and forth, even if it shatters concentration.
Totally. And that Atlantic media analysis you mentioned, Scott Cochran, he actually put numbers on the cost of email.
He did. Quantified the time spent reading, replying, context switching, all that stuff, and found the company was spending like over $1 million a year just on processing email.
Wow. So much for free and frictionless communication.
Right. It shows the massive hidden cost of constant connectivity and fragmented attention. We assume more communication is always good, but maybe not.
And that just reinforces the principle of least resistance. It's just easier to react to the ping of an email than to carve out and defend that focus of time.
It is, especially when, as the book calls it, there's a metric black hole around the value of deep work.
Meaning it's hard to measure the immediate ROI of spending 3 hours thinking deeply.
Precisely. So without clear metrics, those easy-to-do, high-tech, distracting behaviors seem productive, just because they're visible and measurable in some way, even if the real impact is negligible or even negative.
Okay, so we've established it's valuable, but rare and difficult. But the book argues the benefits go beyond just getting more done.
Yeah.
It connects to meaning.
Yes, definitely. It contrasts the often abstract, maybe unsatisfying nature of a lot of shallow knowledge work with the more concrete satisfaction you get from craftsmanship.
Like Matthew Crawford, the guy who left a think tank to fix motorcycles.
Exactly. He wrote Shop Class as Soulcraft about seeking that direct connection between effort and a tangible result, something that can feel missing in endless email chains or report writing.
Because deep work, especially mastering a skill, gives you that direct feedback loop.
Right. You see the results of your focused effort. It taps into a fundamental human need.
And the swordsmith example, Rick Furrer, his work demands insane concentration.
Where even a tiny lapse ruins hours of work. But he clearly finds immense satisfaction in it. The book suggests this link between depth and fulfillment is obvious in traditional crafts.
So the meaning comes from that focused engagement, the skill.
Largely, yes. The direct interaction with the material, the immediate feedback, creating something real through focused effort. It's deeply rewarding. The challenge is finding that same sense of craftsmanship in knowledge work.
And there's another, maybe less obvious benefit mentioned. Deep work can sort of hijack your attention in a good way.
Yeah, hijacking the attention apparatus. Basically, when you're fully absorbed in something demanding, your brain doesn't have the bandwidth to dwell on anxieties or petty annoyances.
Like getting sucked into those endless, draining email threads about trivial stuff.
Yeah.
Deep work shields you from that buffet of distraction.
That's the idea. Your cognitive resources are deployed on the task at hand, so there's less room for the negative or unproductive mental chatter. It's an active displacement of distraction.
Makes sense. And then there's the flow state connection, Mahali's Csikszentmihalyi's work.
Right. That state of being completely immersed, energized, and finding enjoyment in the activity itself. Deep work is basically the prerequisite for flow.
How do you trigger flow, generally?
It usually happens when there's a good match between the challenge of the task and your skill level slightly stretching you, but achievable. That sweet spot requires intense focus, which is what deep work provides.
Okay, and then the philosophical angle. From all things shining, connecting deep work to shining things.
Yeah, Dreyfus and Kelly's idea. They argue that historically, people experience the world as filled with meaning, with sacred, shining things. They connect that experience to skillful engagement with the world, like craftsmanship.
And they suggest even modern skills, like computer programming, can be a form of this craftsmanship, accessing something sacred.
Sort of. The idea is that meaning isn't just in what you do, but how you do it. Approaching your work with focus, skill, care. A craftsman's mindset can imbue even abstract tasks with a sense of depth and significance.
So a well-crafted piece of code or a well-reasoned argument could be a shining thing.
That's the implication. It's about the quality of attention and skill you bring. It means you don't need a glamorous job to find meaning. You need a deep approach, and that requires deep work.
Okay, so it's valuable, rare, meaningful. How do we actually do more of it? What are some strategies?
Well, the book stresses having a personal philosophy for how you'll integrate it. It outlines a few models. There's the monastic approach.
Like basically becoming a hermit, cutting out almost all shallow work.
Pretty much. It's extreme, maximizing deep work above all else. Maybe not realistic for most, but the principle is clear. Minimize obligations that drain focus.
Right. What's next?
The bimodal philosophy.
Yeah.
Adam Grant is the example here. He alternates intense, isolated work periods with periods where he's fully open and collaborative.
So like maybe a few days completely offline and focus, then a few days of meetings and calls.
Exactly. It acknowledges you need both deep focus and interaction, but tries to separate them cleanly to avoid constant switching. Might be more sustainable for many people.
Okay. And the journalistic.
That's about fitting deep work into your schedule wherever you can find a gap, like a journalist on deadline. Newport himself uses this sometimes, apparently, capitalizing on unexpected pockets of free time.
Requires being able to switch into focus mode really quickly, I imagine.
Definitely. Needs mental agility. Then there are grand gestures.
Like J.K. Rowling renting that fancy hotel suite to finish Harry Potter.
Or William Shockley isolating himself for the transistor work. These dramatic moves signal commitment to yourself and others. They create a strong boundary for focus.
Even if temporary. What about collaboration? Isn't that important too?
It is. The book suggests a hub-and-spoke model. You go to the hub meetings, brainstorming sessions for ideas and input.
But then you retreat to your spoke, your quiet space, to actually do the deep work on those ideas.
Exactly. Input from others, followed by focused, individual processing and creation, gets the best of both worlds.
That makes sense. And the 4DX framework.
What?
4 disciplines of execution.
Yeah, it's a business execution framework adapted for deep work. Focus on one or two wildly important goals. Act on lead measures, crucially, tracking your hours spent in deep work. Keep a visible scorecard and have regular accountability.
So it provides structure. Track
Yeah.
the input. Deep work hours, not just the output.
Right, because the deep work hours are something you can directly control and measure week to week. It creates a system to make it happen consistently.
What about managing the internet?
Yeah.
The ultimate distraction.
Yeah. A key strategy is scheduling your internet use. Decide when you'll check email or browse, maybe in specific blocks, rather than reacting constantly.
So it's not about banning it, but controlling when you engage. Because the constant switching is the real killer.
Precisely. Regain control over your attention.
And productive meditation. Using downtime for thinking.
Yeah, using commutes, walks, shower time, but structuring it. Focus on a specific professional problem. Review the variables, identify the very next question you need to answer, and consolidate any insights mentally.
So turning dead time into focused thinking time.
Don't just let your mind wander aimlessly. Direct it.
The book even mentions memory training, like memorizing cards.
Oddly, yes. The idea is that the intense concentration required for memory feats strengthens your overall ability to focus, like mental weightlifting.
Interesting. A transferable skill.
Yeah.
What about choosing which tools to use? All the apps and platforms.
That's the craftsman approach to tool selection. Be really critical. Don't just jump on board because a tool offers some benefit.
Ask if the benefit is substantial and outweighs the downsides, like distraction, like the farmer deciding if a new bowler is really worth the cost and complexity.
Exactly that. Focus on the core activities that drive value, and only adopt tools that significantly enhance those without adding too much noise.
Which connects to the law of the vital few, right? The 80-20 rule for online habits.
Yep. Figure out the 20% of online stuff that gives you 80% of the benefit, and be ruthless about cutting out the rest. Think Gladwell or Michael Lewis mostly staying off Twitter.
Focus on what truly matters online. Ditch the fluff.
Right. And if you're really struggling, there's the quit social media experiment. Just try 30 days off.
To see if you actually miss it,
Oh.
or if it was just habit.
Exactly. A reality check on its true value in your life.
Okay, nearly there. Fixed schedule productivity.
This is about setting a hard stop time for your workday, say 5:00 p.m., and sticking to it. Then you work backward to figure out how to fit your important work into those constrained hours.
So the constraint forces efficiency. Instead of letting work expand to fill infinite time, Newport uses this himself.
Yeah, he contrasts it with the long hours culture common in academia. Having a fixed endpoint makes you prioritize ruthlessly and avoid time-wasting activities.
Makes sense. And finally, email tips. Sender filters, being more thoughtful when replying.
And crucially, not feeling you have to reply to everything. The goal is to reduce the cognitive load and interruptions from your inbox. Take back control.
Got it. So the overarching theme seems to be that deep work isn't automatic. It's a skill you have to train.
Absolutely. It requires conscious effort, practice, and building systems to protect your focus from the constant barrage of distractions.
Okay, so wrapping this up, our deep dive into deep work really hammers home that this ability to concentrate without distraction is, well, incredibly valuable. It's becoming rarer, but it's key for productivity, learning new things quickly, and actually finding more meaning in what we do.
It definitely takes deliberate effort, maybe changing some ingrained habits, which isn't easy, but the potential rewards professionally, personally, seem pretty significant.
Which leaves us with a final thought for everyone listening. Think about one area, just one, in your work or even your personal life, where your focus feels really scattered right now.
Yeah, what might actually happen if you deliberately carved out, say, even just 30 minutes of truly uninterrupted, deep work time on that specific thing? What insights, what progress, what shining things might you uncover just by giving it your full, dedicated attention?
Food for thought. Obviously, we've just scratched the surface today. There are many more nuances and strategies in Newport's work if this has sparked your interest.